Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast, sponsored by Gold Group Realty. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TC Jewfolk. And this week we sit down with the self-described insatiably curious Zoe Moskowitz, a pastry cook at the James Beard Award-winning Spoon and Stable in Minneapolis. We talk about her move to Minneapolis last year, how the restaurant industry is in her blood, and how her favorite Jewish prayer became the inspiration for a dish on this week's Who the Folk podcast. Zoe Moskowitz, welcome
Hello.
to the Who the Folk podcast. How are you?
Good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming in. I appreciate it. So you are a pastry cook at Spoon and Stable.
Yes.
And you chuckle because I asked you the difference between pastry chef and pastry cook.
Yes.
Because I've been telling everybody, this is so cool. I get to interview a pastry chef, not the pastry chef, a pastry chef.
Yes.
And then you tell me, yeah, not quite.
Yeah, I mean, there's some semantics within the verbiage.
Okay.
In the industry, like I said to you before, in the industry, the word chef refers to someone who's in charge and someone who has some management skills, whereas a cook is just somebody who follows their orders.
Okay.
But, I mean, when I introduce myself to people, I say I'm a chef.
Okay.
It's easier. It's less semantics.
Yes, less explaining.
Yeah, a lot less explaining.
So how long have you been at Spoon and Stable for?
Actually, just about a year.
Okay.
Next week or the week after is my 1 year.
Okay, so
Yeah.
early March.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, first week of March.
What brought you to Spoon and Stable? How did you get your start there?
It's actually the other way around. That Spoon and Stable is what brought me to Minneapolis.
Oh, okay.
Yes. So I, this time about a year ago, was kind of an interesting time in my life. I was looking for an internship. I needed a senior internship to graduate. And I had 2 job interviews in San Francisco, both of which ended up falling through.
Okay.
Pretty devastating,
Ooh.
not going to lie.
Yeah.
And I had very, very quickly had less and less time to find an internship, and finding an internship on a short notice is next to impossible, especially when you don't have time to do an interview and you don't have time to fly out and stage. So I caved, and I messaged some of my chefs, and I said, hey, what can you do for me? I need help. I need to go somewhere in 2 weeks. I need some help. And one of my chefs said, you had mentioned Spoon and Stable. You had said that this is a restaurant you were really interested in. I'm friends with Gavin. Let's pull some strings. Let's see if we can get you out there. And I was like, you know what? I had a great meal there. I had actually come here for a women's chefs conference the year prior.
Okay.
And my friend and I had eaten at Spoon and met Chef Diane. So he worked some magic, and I got an email and phone call interview later, and now we're here. And it was an absolute blessing in disguise. The last year has been fantastic.
So where are you from originally?
I am from Massachusetts.
Okay.
Yeah, and I went to college in Rhode Island. So
Okay.
I feel just as home in both places at this point now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're lifelong East Coaster, though?
Yeah. I love the East Coast. I love the ocean. I love the way of life. And when people live near the ocean is very different. I have a hard time describing this to people in the Midwest.
Okay.
Like the way that people hold themselves and the way that they view life. I feel like it's kind of similar to the lake life attitude
Yeah.
in Minnesota, but with an ocean.
Yeah.
The way it's people are so much more chill. They're so much more go with the flow and really in tune with nature in the way that the tides come and go. It's very prophetic that way, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah, I love the East Coast. It's a great place.
So after your internship ended, you got hired on to stay at Spoon and Stable?
Yes.
That had to be pretty amazing.
Yeah.
It's quite a place to sort of get your start in your career.
Absolutely. I mean, not to toot my own horn.
This is what you're here for. Toot away.
Great. I kind of made it my point to look for the best places that I could work for.
Sure.
Any chance that I got to move, I worked in D.C. for a little while. I did my first internship at one of the best restaurants in Providence. Like I said, I staged and tried to get some jobs in San Francisco. I'm always looking for the best in whatever's next. Always looking to work at the best restaurants. Always looking to work with the best chefs, and that was really a goal of mine. So working at Spoon and Stable is just absolutely part of that, and I've been lucky.
And Gavin Kaysen is no joke as a chef.
No, absolutely not. He's a great guy. Yeah.
2-time James Beard winner.
I'm not sure. At
least one. For Spoon and Stable.
Yeah, for the new restaurant, I believe it won.
Or was for Belcourt?
No, I believe it's for Spoon and Stable.
Okay.
And the first year that it opened, it was nominated for the Best New Restaurant, which Demi is nominated for this year.
Yes.
So it would be really interesting to see if Demi won that as well.
I have not had the pleasure of eating at Demi yet, but I've heard
You should.
Amazing.
I've only actually seen the space once, I'm embarrassed to say, but it's so beautiful.
I've heard.
It's stunning. And the food is just like nothing the Twin Cities has seen before.
Okay. I've heard it.
I feel pretty confident in saying that.
I think you should. I was sent pictures of the meal there, and it looked absolutely jaw-dropping.
Yeah, it's stunning. Food like that just really makes me so... That's it. You know, that's why we cook. We make beautiful food like that inspires people, and they leave talking about it, and they go home and they're like, look at these pictures. People are showing each other pictures of food now. Like, they're posting about this food that they're eating, and they're so excited about it. And I think that is so cool and so exciting.
Especially as somebody who makes the food.
Yeah.
It's got to be so gratifying when
Absolutely.
you can put out a plate that people are like, don't touch anything, move away. I got to get the picture first.
First of all, I'm on both ends of that.
Are you?
I am embarrassed to say that I am. I'm very often the first person to be like, "Oh my God, don't touch anything! I need to take a picture of it first." Like, nobody eat until I take a picture of it first that I'm confident with and I want to share later, or just like save for myself for later to remember. But that's actually something I really love about Spoon and Stable. We have an open kitchen, like completely open.
Yes.
That I have never worked in before. Like, I've never had the experience to work in such an open kitchen. And it actually is incredibly gratifying and to see the ways that people react to our food. I could actually look out into the dining room and watch someone see the pour over on the honey and cream cake and be like, whoa, I've never seen a pour over before. Like, it's so good.
So good.
And we make these cotton candies for people who come in and are celebrating things, and they're big and beautiful, and no one really expects to see a cotton candy at a restaurant like Spoon and Stable.
Right.
So I get to watch that, and there's 6 seats at the counter that are right on the edge of the open kitchen. And I will very frequently, if I have time, bring over the desserts myself to the people at the counter. And that is, like, I've never had that experience before, and I love it. It is so gratifying, and it definitely makes it more worth it. You know, sometimes when you're in a closed kitchen, you don't get to see that.
Right. You don't get the reactions.
Yeah.
You're just sort of back there working away,
Yeah.
and next thing you know, your shift is over.
Yeah. And that's the inspiration behind it. That's why we do this, you know? We do it because we like feeding people.
Yeah. So what was it that got you into the line, into food? What brought you this path?
A handful of different things, both attributed to my parents, who are going to listen to this and laugh. My dad stumbled into the restaurant industry when he was in college.
Okay.
Went to Tufts in Boston and ended up as a busser who worked his way up to a server, and then somehow Dad can tell me when he listens to this how he ended up as a partial owner of this restaurant.
That's quite a path.
Yeah, I'm not. I still, Dad, fill me in. Like, I have no idea how that happened, but he ended up running this restaurant. It was a gigantic, like, American, just like bar and grill.
Yeah.
They had live music. They had an outdoor patio, lots of fun parties, and lots of like really fun Saturday nights, long shifts, long services. One day, my dad's like partner came up to him and said, "Hey, like, I met this girl. Like, I interviewed this girl today. You got to meet her." And my dad was like, "All right, cool." And then that was my mom. So they worked in this restaurant together for a long time. My mom was a waitress and a bartender, and they had this huge, beautiful community of people that they worked with, like all of my mom's friends and step-siblings and some of my dad's friends, and they made this like beautiful unit together at this restaurant of all of these people that were working together. And my mom always sort of loved to cook, so as we got older and she had me and my brother, there was lots more cooking in the house. She would cook dinner like every night. And the funniest part is that she hates sweets. My mom does not like sweets. She has very cold sensitive teeth, so she doesn't like ice cream.
Okay.
And so I have a huge sweet tooth and was always like itching. I was like, I want to make cookies. Like, I want to do this. And she was like, go for it. So I ended up as the baker because she did not have a sweet tooth and I wanted cookies. So
Okay.
and then I kind of fell in love with it. I went to culinary school It was not originally what I had thought I was going to go to school for when I was in high school.
What did you think you wanted to do?
Oh my God, everyone's going to laugh when I say this. Everybody's going to hear this and laugh. I really wanted to go to school for music therapy.
Okay.
Weirdly enough, I had a really beautiful interest in music in high school. I was involved in a lot of music and arts, and I was looking for a way to turn that into helping people.
Okay.
And music therapy felt like a really cool way to do that. I realized it was a lot harder than I had initially anticipated. And I met a person who said, I'm going to culinary school. And I was like, oh my God, why didn't I think of that? And so I ended up...
Kitchen is literally in your blood.
It's literally, yeah. And for so long, my dad was like, the hours are so long, everything's so stressful. Like, don't do it. Don't go into the industry. Don't do it. And I was like, anyway. And so I did, and it's very interesting because now I feel like me, my mom, and my dad all work in very different pieces of the industry now, and neither of them have any fine dining experience, so it's been very interesting to work in primarily fine dining. Almost all of my jobs have been in fine dining, and to see the differences between like some of their experiences versus mine, and how they're all somehow still the same. Like customers are the same everywhere. Customers
no matter how much they're paying, no matter what the bill is.
No, you're gonna
customers are customers.
You're gonna have customer problems everywhere, and so it's funny to talk to my dad, and he's like, "Oh, this one time," and he's got all these stories about all of these crazy customers that have come in. So yeah, I feel very confident in the industry, and it's funny now, like I said, that we are in very different parts of the industry now, the three of us, so we can talk about all of these different pieces. So it's the same but different, I guess, at this point.
But so your interest was always pastry. It was not I would say cooking. That's not the right word, but like the main course side.
Yeah.
Of
so
things. It was always
funny,
pastry.
It started with pastry, and then I realized, oh my God, there's so much more to food, and I call myself insatiably curious.
Okay.
And I realized when I got to culinary school, I had originally just applied for a baking and pastry degree.
Okay.
And then about a month in, I was like, this is not going to be enough information for me. Like, I need more. I need to know more. I need to study more. I love this so much. I need to know everything that there is to know. Okay. So I signed on to do a culinary degree as well. And then I actually ended up doing another degree. So I graduated in 4 years with 3 degrees. 2 associate's degrees and a bachelor's degree that was in culinary arts. The bachelor's was more like menu development, kitchen design, how to run a restaurant, how to be a chef, but also a leader. So like the
business, tackled a little bit more.
It was
of the business
a little bit
side?
more of the business, yeah,
Okay.
but also like a little bit more of the creative inspiration focus behind writing our menu and like how to do that and how to target your menu towards different people and use media and things like that. Yeah. So I have training in both pastry and savory. And I am, like I said, I'm insatiably curious. I just need to keep knowing more.
Does knowing all of the other stuff, the culinary side, the business side, the design, the kitchen design side, does that make you a better pastry chef?
Oh, absolutely.
How come?
I think that I think the industry right now is leaning towards more dynamic in the kitchen. That the pastry teams are working with the savory teams, and the savory teams are working with the pastry teams so much more now. Like on things like bread. Like bread is savory, but also made by pastry chefs. There's some interesting ways in which they can overlap and where we can all learn from each other. And I particularly love savory sweets, so I like including something a little bit more savory in a sweet, like white miso in a cookie or something like that, or like tahini, very popular, like Tahini's Jewish Middle Eastern ingredient.
It is, but tahini's a big ingredient in baking. Like
it can be, yeah.
It feels like sort of a trend right now.
It definitely is a trend right now. Yeah, like the salty sweet.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I love a good sundae where it's got like hot and cold and salty sweet, like all of that in it. And so I think my savory background makes me a better pastry chef because of that. And I know more ingredients than, or not to toot my own horn, but like I've been exposed to some ingredients that the savory people use that I can be like, oh, maybe we could do that in a dessert, or maybe I could use that in an ice cream or something like that. So,
and it's funny because you mentioned the bread baking. Like, it seems obvious. Obviously, it's baking, but I wouldn't think of that necessarily as like pastry. Cook duties.
Yeah.
That's really interesting.
At Food and Stable, technically, that is one of the savory cooks makes the bread.
Oh, okay.
But in general, some of my pastry classes were bread baking.
And I'm sure every restaurant, I mean, obviously your most recent experience is here, but I'm sure every restaurant that you've been at or may one day be at are probably going to do things a little bit differently.
Totally. And that's the beauty of it. And that's why I've had the opportunity to travel around the country and travel abroad and study from lots of different people. And that's the best thing that I've gotten from all of it is how people do things differently and the different ingredients that people use and how, like, even coming here, there's so many Midwestern ingredients that I had no idea even existed.
Like what?
Like lingonberries. I had never heard of lingonberries before. They're, very similar to cranberry in flavor, but or like currant, I guess.
Sure.
Very similar to currant.
But they seem more I've never used them myself, but they seem more delicate than
they're a little sweeter too. And like wild rice. Wild rice is really cool. And the history of wild rice is really cool. And the indigenous populations here are something that we have such a rich history of indigenous people in New England, but none of them exist there anymore. Yeah. And it's really sad. And the only influence we still have in New England is the names. So to come here and see that there's still a really thriving Native American population, and that we're utilizing their ingredients and some things that they find really sacred was mind-blowing. Very, very cool.
So how open is, and this is probably would be a Chef Diane thing, who's the head pastry chef at Spoon and Stable, how open is she to input on menu or ideas from you and the other pastry cooks?
Yeah, she's pretty open. She will ask us for advice sometimes. Okay. And it is her and Chef Alex are primarily the ones who write the menu.
Okay.
But we have lots of input in other little things like the petit fours, which are the little cookies that come at the end of the meal. Yeah, those are really good. Or like ice creams and things like that.
What's your favorite thing to bake?
Kind of whatever moves me at the moment. I know that's a lame answer, but that's a question that we get all the time.
I'm sure.
What's your favorite thing to cook? What's your favorite thing to bake? Anything that I can share, I guess.
Okay.
I find cakes kind of hard to share. I know that sounds weird, but everybody's kind of intimidated the Minnesota nice of like taking a slice of cake, you know? So I like things like cookies or like little handheld things are really fun. I think cookies also are a really fun way to get some inspiration and to do some fun, interesting things. So I feel like cookies would probably be my answer.
If you were, which is funny because it sort of goes back to like the story with your mom of like, I want to make, like, you always wanted to make cookies, and she's like, fine, you'll make them.
Go make them, yeah.
So it's still cooked. What, from a trend standpoint, what are you seeing within the industry, especially obviously the pastry side? What are you seeing in terms of ingredients, or is there a direction maybe that things are moving in?
I think in general, sustainability is an overarching term, and at this point, we've talked about this a lot. Calling yourself farm to table is a baseline at this point.
Yeah.
Where like, if you call yourself farm to table, like everybody's like, yeah, duh, like you should be.
Right.
You know, and so we're sort of moving past that into more sustainability.
Okay.
Which has brought a lot of cross utilization and like fermentation into the kitchen.
Oh, interesting.
So people are using these ingredients that they would normally throw out in all these different ways, and they're utilizing them. They're forcing chefs to be creative again. You know, like, what do I do with this broccoli stem? Like, what do I do with the like weird like bitter part at the top of a strawberry? Like, can you save the strawberry leaves? Can you do something with those? Like, and chefs are really starting to do that and start to use that as like, hey, look at my skills, but also I'm saving the earth at the same time.
Right.
So I see the trends going that way, and it's kind of re-inspiring chefs, I think, to think a little harder.
Push the envelope a little bit.
Yeah, to say like, I'm throwing these away. What can I do with them? Like at Spoon and Stable, we just made a huge batch of some vinegar that will be working for a couple of months down the line. So we won't even taste this vinegar for a couple of months. They're utilizing beet skins from when we like make beets, and we turn it into a beet powder for brunch.
Okay.
That's amazing. That's so cool. It's this beautiful, like, brightly colored, like, purple powder that goes on top of this dish at brunch that has beets in it. Yeah, very interesting.
That's really cool.
It's very cool.
That's definitely, I mean, and that's feels very outside of the box. But also, I think that's going to become sort of like what farm to table is. That's going to sort of be table stakes.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Especially at the fine dining level.
And I think, I feel like it sounds intimidating, but it's really not. And
it sounds incredibly intimidating. Don't sell it short. It sounds really hard.
I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. Like I said, broccoli stems, right? So one of the things that I love and one of the things I feel really passionate about as a young person in this industry is making a lot of this palatable. Making a lot of these ideas and a lot of these techniques palatable. Because I don't think they're that hard. I think people actually sell themselves short. Yeah. I think most people have the skills to cook. They're just intimidated, and they don't necessarily have the right, they don't have some basic skills, they don't have some basic knowledge, but they're selling themselves short. So broccoli stems. I'm going to talk to you about broccoli stems. My boyfriend and I like broccoli a lot. I like roasted broccoli. I like when it gets all burnt and crispy, and that's like one of my favorite things. We put that on everything, right? Okay. Rice bowls, pasta, whatever. So we saved up a lot of our broccoli stems and put them in the freezer. Just put them in a little container in the freezer and kept saving them and saving them and saving them. And yesterday I made basically a vegan like Alfredo sauce with those broccoli stems. So I boiled the broccoli stems with some cashews and some garlic and onions, and then just boiled it until they were super squishy. Pureed it up, and my boyfriend's probably eating it for lunch right now.
Wow.
We tossed it with some pasta and put the roasted tops on top. And it's delicious. It's very broccoli forward, but I feel like you could trick some kids into eating it too, you know? Like it's one of those kinds of things, like hide your vegetables. But that's a waste product. A lot of people don't know, like, the broccoli stems taste really good. They might have a different texture than the tops of the broccoli, but they taste delicious.
Are you tired of paying rent and want to learn how to own a cash-flowing property where a renter helps subsidize your living expenses? Reach out to the team at Gold Group Realty and schedule a coffee to learn what it takes to make your first investment in real estate and get you to stop paying rent. Find the Gold Group at www.thegold.group today. One that I know that my wife and I use when we cook, and my kids aren't really into broccoli, but since we're talking broccoli here, we'll like peel the stems and then cut them into small rounds, and then just toss them in some olive oil, a little bit of sugar, and it gets a little caramelized with the rest of it.
Sick.
It's
That's
phenomenal.
great.
It's phenomenal. It's
See,
so
and now you're going to go home and you're going to go do that with other things.
I kind of want to go make that now because that's one of our favorite. Yeah,
that also
dishes.
Like peeling vegetables. That's another thing. I'm sick of that. We don't have to do that. If you don't work,
have to do that?
No. If you work in a fine dining restaurant, maybe for visual, you need to do that.
Okay.
You don't need to peel your carrots. You don't need to peel anything. I mean,
really?
It's
sorry. Now I feel ashamed for peeling my carrots.
No, I mean, do it if you want to.
Okay.
But you don't have to.
What would you tell the home chef then? How would you prepare them if peeling is bad?
It's not bad. You're just producing waste.
Okay.
You know. So
right,
and like
fair.
I said, that's what we're trying to.
Okay. So in the industry, like, is there like an industry recommendation? You as a chef,
God.
what would you tell me to do?
I don't speak for everybody.
That's fine. Speak for yourself. If you're doing carrots at home, you're not going to peel that. You just like scrub them down real good and make sure all the
and buy local. You know.
Yeah.
I'm very, very much an advocate for supporting local farmers, and specifically in the realm of eating less meat. I worked at a vegan bakery for a year and a half, and I feel very strongly about the eating less meat community, and I love all of my friends. But I think that there's a missed opportunity here to support your local farmers instead. You know, like your tofu's coming from China. Yeah. Your soybeans might be coming from the Midwest, but very likely your tofu's coming from China. Yeah. That makes a bigger carbon footprint than buying lamb from your farmer down the street.
Right.
And so that's what I want people to understand, you know, and like you can eat meat, but like.
So you said lamb, now I want
lamb. Oh, lamb's so good.
So good.
I was watching a Bon Appetit video, and one of the girls was talking about not liking the gaminess of lamb. And I was like, that's the cool
part.
part.
No, that's the best part of the
lamb.
That's
the cool part. It tastes like what it ate.
Yeah, that's right.
I think that's fascinating. So yeah, utilizing your local people. Don't scrub your carrots. You don't have to peel them.
Okay.
Peel it if you want to, if you feel safer. I don't know.
But the beauty of Minnesota is that, yes, there's obviously still some snow on the ground, but it's almost farmers market season.
Yeah, we're so close.
And that's so close.
So
and I got to
close.
imagine as a chef, do you get a lot of, you've had one farmer's market season here already. Do you get a lot of inspiration from like walking through on a Saturday morning and seeing all these things and you're like, God, your brain starts just working at a different level?
I don't like going with a plan. I don't like going to the farmer's markets with a plan.
Right.
I'm like, I want to get carrots this week. I mean, maybe.
Right. There's probably some staples that there's stuff you want in the house.
Yeah. Like I love the local garlic, or buying herbs at the farmer's market is always really nice.
Mm-hmm.
The Hmong population here, that's another thing. They grow very interesting foods.
Yes, they do.
And I am baffled by them every time I go to the farmer's market. I'm like, you're growing bitter melons in Minnesota?
Yeah.
Wow. Like these huge Asian scallions that are like 3 feet long. They're amazing. They're so cool.
So how does that work at the like, obviously that works for the home chef, but if you see these things as you're walking through the market, you're like, what can we do with them at the restaurant?
Yeah.
I'd imagine procurement can't be as easy as just going to the farmer's market, or is it?
We work directly with the farmers instead.
Oh, okay.
So we actually have we work with the Hmong Farmers Association, and we work with a couple different local farms, even throughout the winter too. Like we work with a lot of the indoor microgreens growers. Sure. And so we'll have direct, we work directly with the farmers to get those things.
Okay.
And I saw last summer there were multiple occasions where some representative from whatever farm was like, hey, I got these like 50 pounds of purple sweet potatoes in the truck. Like, can you guys use these for anything? Like, the last guy didn't want them. Like, I'm trying to sell them to somebody. Do you guys want them? And I think that's a really cool opportunity for the restaurant to be like, yeah, let's see what we can do.
Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, what can we do with these purple sweet potatoes? And also help those farming organizations, too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool.
So most recently, and how I got to know about you was because Rabbi Avi Olitsky at Bethel mentioned that you were the pastry chef for the Tu B'Shvat Seder, the 7th annual this year at Bethel Synagogue, which was at this point about a month ago. Mm-hmm. What was that experience like?
It was very interesting for me. It kind of fell into my lap in a very interesting way. Rabbi Avi had been asking Chef Alex, who's my pastry sous chef, to do the event. And she initially said, yeah. And then one day we were just talking and I said something about me being Jewish. And she was like, hey, I got offered this event. Like, can you come help me with this? Like, can you help me with this event? Like, I know nothing about Judaism and you're Jewish. Like, help me out. I was like, yeah, that's a really cool holiday. Tu B'Shvat's really, really cool. And people don't celebrate it that often. That's really cool that they're doing a dinner for it. And eventually, about a week later, she was like, listen, I don't have time for this dinner. If you want it, I'd be happy to reach out to Rabbi Avi and see if that's something that he would be willing to do. And Rabbi Avi was like amazingly enthusiastic about having me as a part of the team, especially as like a young Jewish transplant. I think was like equally as excited for him. So yeah, the dinner itself was it was really cool to be a part of the Jewish community here and to kind of see what that looks like here. I hadn't found any Jewish community here that I honestly hadn't even been looking. Okay. So for this to stumble in my lap was really interesting. And now to be here talking about Judaism and food, and this is actually the first time I've ever been in a JCC. I know that's weird. That's weird. But
like ever or
like,
just here?
No, like literally ever.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Very interesting.
That's very cool.
It is.
So what was your dessert that you...
I had 3 desserts.
What were your desserts that you...
Oh, God. The first course was actually, this is the most Jewish course, was inspired by the Shehekianu. Okay. This was an idea that Rabbi Avi and the pastry chef last year worked on together to have an intermezzo that was inspired by the Shehekianu, which... I told this story, and like you weren't at the dinner, so you're going to appreciate this story. The Shehekianu was a prayer when I was younger that I thought that it jokingly became my favorite prayer. Okay. Because I was like, oh my God, these words are so funny. Like they all rhyme. They all have this like funny cadence to them. Like, you know,
that was the word I was just going to say was cadence.
Cadence,
just,
yeah.
Yes.
And they kind of rhyme. They're kind of funny sounding. And as a kid, I was like, "Ha, this is funny. Like, this is such a funny prayer. Like, none of the other ones sound like this,
Yeah.
you know, and like the way that the words match up." And then I think at some point my dad jokingly said, like, "Oh, Zoe, it's your favorite prayer." And I was like, "Haha, it is." And then eventually, when I got older, I realized, like, wow, this is a really beautiful prayer. It has a
Right.
lot of really beautiful meaning. And I like the idea of celebrating when you get to a moment. You know, and to acknowledging, like, this is a really special moment. I love that idea. And I feel like I've really latched onto it the older I got.
Yeah.
Like, wow, this is a really amazing moment that I'm in right now, and I really want to appreciate it. The idea of saying that prayer when you see a rainbow, when you do something for the first time, when a baby is born, like, those are really special moments. And I think I've translated that into my life a little bit. And I actually had the piece of the prayer written on the bottom of my graduation cap when I graduated high school.
That's so cool.
So I was like, this is a really interesting prayer and a really good moment, and I'm really happy to get to this moment. So I felt like I needed to immortalize it on the bottom of my cap.
That's
so I have
awesome.
I have like a very special connection with that prayer specifically, like probably the only one.
Yeah.
So the intermezzo at the dinner was inspired by the Shehekianu. Rabbi Avi really wanted to pick a fruit, obviously with the theme of Tu B'Shvat, that the people that were eating it may not have had this year or this season. And so I chose green papaya,
Okay.
which is another ingredient you usually see in savory cooking, like green papaya salad. Usually not seen in sweet things because it's actually very bitter.
Okay.
And so I did green papaya with tapioca and herbs and white balsamic, which was surprisingly a lot of people's favorite bite of the night, and I was
Awesome.
I was really happy about it.
That's really cool.
Because it was kind of a little bit of a reach for intrigue in that one. My first course was based on dates, and I did a haupia, which is a coconut custard from Hawaii, with roasted dates and cara oranges and fried ginger, and some pine nuts. So that was delicious.
Again, sort of the sweet, the savory, all coming
The
together.
fried ginger was very spicy, and I had a couple of
Really?
the servers, the like service staff, came up to me and they were like, "Hey, someone just asked me what's spicy on this dish," and I had literally no idea. And it was the fried ginger that was on top. Yeah. And then my last course was based on honey, which I took in two different forms. I used honey, and then I used bee pollen as well, which apparently is kosher, which is very cool.
Really?
Yeah, and it's
Okay.
kosher. Well, the dinner was a meat dinner.
Yes.
So all of my desserts had to be dairy free.
Yeah.
Which was a beautiful challenge. I also made all of my desserts gluten free, and
Wow.
2 of my courses were vegan. So, yeah, just to make sure I was hitting all the points, to make sure that
Yeah.
everybody could eat the things that I was serving. And actually, all 3 of my courses were like none of the allergies at the dinner like mattered on all 3 of my courses. So everybody at the
that's
dinner
great.
was able to eat all 3.
And having worked in the vegan bakery for a year, I mean, that had to have helped a little bit, that it gives you sort of this base
Yeah.
of knowledge that...
Yeah. And I also spoke about in my bio how I feel really passionate about making sure that people with allergies or with different choices of things they want to eat can still have a quality of meal, you know, and I feel very strongly about that. And not just like, here's a scoop of sorbet, you know, I want to make something a little bit more substantial than that.
And I think that's sort of the beauty of food and eating out is that it is this communal
Yeah.
experience, or at least it can be.
Yeah.
This
And
communal
I love
experience.
that. I love that. I know you've kind of caught my
I have
my
caught the-
tattoo here.
Yeah. What is the tattoo
This
on your
is
left arm
this
there?
is wheat on my
Okay.
left arm, and I have a heirloom tomato on my right arm.
That is an awesome heirloom tomato.
Yeah, they're pretty beautiful. Shout out to Lauren in New Hampshire. They're both done by her. My wheat actually ties really closely into that theme of communal cooking. I feel very strongly about the way that food brings people together and how inspiring that is. It's vaguely Jewish inspired, actually. The idea of breaking challah on Friday.
Yeah.
So inspiring. That we don't cut it, you know.
Right.
It's very explicitly like you don't cut challah. You rip challah and
Yeah.
you pass it around, and everybody's sharing from this communal loaf. And like not to be selfish and take a bigger piece than the person next to you, and to make sure that everybody gets a little piece. So wheat ties into that. I think there's so many different places in history and even now where wheat is a part of our lives, and like the breaking bread, and it was actually used as currency back in the day, and like people would barter with wheat.
Okay. It's a commodity.
Yeah. So I feel really strongly about the way that wheat brings people together and food brings people together that way too.
What's the tomato?
The tomato. The tomato is representative of the seasons and how things taste better when they're in season.
Yeah.
And the most mind-blowing experience of my life was eating heirloom tomatoes in the summer. And I just have this like just unbelievably visceral remembrance of we were part of a CSA, which is community supported agriculture, which I love. Sign up for your local CSA. Plug. We were members of the CSA in my hometown, and we were members for like a couple years. And the CSA, this one particularly, was called Heirloom Harvests, and they grew a lot of heirloom tomatoes. Every summer, we'd get like unbelievable amounts of heirloom tomatoes, like more than we would ever know how to do it, which is such a beautiful problem to have.
That's an amazing problem to have.
And we would just come home, and I could like feel the sun setting in the summer. We would just like cut them open and cover them with a little olive oil and salt, and just snack on them while we were making dinner.
That sounds so good.
It's ethereal when you taste something the way it's supposed to be tasted. Carrots too. I had that experience with carrots. Going to a beautiful farm and like pulling a carrot out of the ground, and like there's still dirt on it, and like munching on that. Yeah. It tastes like a carrot. You know, it doesn't taste like the watery things that we're used to from the grocery store. I think of the grocery store tomatoes now, and like they're mealy and they're sad and they're flavorless because we've grown them for commodity and not for flavor. Right. So that's my tattoos. I know that's kind of sort of anti-Jewish.
No, I am not of the ilk that thinks tattoos are anti-Jewish.
Yeah, it's funny.
I know a lot. I know plenty do, and
yes.
I understand why. But that is not me. I think they're very cool.
Yes,
and have been for 15 years now contemplating what my next tattoo is going to be.
Cool.
I haven't decided on one yet, which is part of why I haven't gotten one yet.
Yes,
but
my dad says the same
wanting
thing.
Another.
Yeah, I had a really interesting conversation with my dad about it before I got my first one, and I said, you know, like in the realm of Judaism, this is the way that I explained it to other people, that desecrating your body was always a sin. Mm-hmm. And then World War II happened, and then all of a sudden tattoos took on a very different meaning.
Yes.
And I was talking to my dad about that and was saying, like, in the realm of Judaism, like, I feel kind of weird getting a tattoo, but I really want one. And like, how do I balance those feelings? And he said something that I'll honestly never forget. And he said that tattoos in the past were used as a form of like, I'm not going to say this right. They were used to, they were used to like force us into doing something, and now they're a form of expression. Mm-hmm. So of oppression, that's the word I'm looking for. They were used as a form of oppression, and now they're a form of expression.
Yes.
Which I was like, oh wow, that is.
It feels like there's a certain reclamation.
Absolutely, and like these are things I feel very strongly about, and I'm used to kind of explaining my Judaism to people, and I think that getting tattoos now, like I said, they're a form of expression. We have this freedom now that our ancestors didn't. Yeah. And I think to feel so strongly about something that you would want it on your body forever is a really beautiful feeling, and in some ways very, very Jewish.
and those two are beautiful. So
Thank you.
People should check them out. Shout out to your New Hampshire tattoo artist, because they're absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you.
Pieces of art.
I think they're beautiful.
They are. They're fantastic.
That was another thing that was important to me too, to make sure that they were artistic. And they were beautiful. They're not just meaningful. I worked with an artist, and I worked with her very closely to make these beautiful little pieces of art.
And they are that. All right, last couple questions,
yes.
And we'll get you out of here. Favorite Jewish holiday?
Probably Purim.
Okay.
I jokingly call Purim the feminist Jewish Halloween.
I'm not sure that's joking, though.
It's not wrong.
It probably really is.
Is it wrong? I feel like it's the most, like, I don't know. It's just so cool. It's so amazing that this woman was so empowered to hide herself, but also for the greater good. Yeah. And to, I think the whole story is very empowering. And I love that we dress up as princesses in the most, like, for lack of a better term, like, badass way. Yeah. Like we celebrate this princess who did this amazing thing, and that's a really cool message to send to young Jewish girls.
And it's super timely because it's coming up.
Yeah, it is coming up. I'm going to make some Hamantaschen soon. I'm very excited.
Okay, so before I get to the last question,
Yeah.
What kind of Hamantaschen do you like to make?
Oh, I've made a handful in the past. And
Are you like traditionalist with the fillings?
No, not really.
Okay.
I mean, I like me a good jelly one.
Okay.
Anything with jelly, I can get down with that, whether it's like apricot or raspberry or whatever.
Yeah.
My mind wants to say Nutella. I don't know. I really want to do some Nutella this year.
All right. That's
like new age.
We like doing cookie butter.
Oh, yum. Oh, like Biscoff cookies?
Yeah, like a Biscoff cookie butter.
Yum.
Yeah.
That sounds delicious.
The spread, just glop a bit of the spread in there.
That sounds really good, actually.
Yeah, it's really good. All right, and favorite Jewish food?
Ooh, like anything? Any Jewish food?
Any Jewish food.
Okay, well, probably matzo balls.
Okay.
But recently, funny enough, I've been sort of drawn to Jewish cooking and Jewish food.
Yeah?
And so I've been trying to just think about it in a little bit of a different light. Like we were in Florida in January, and there's this Jewish deli down there for all the expats that live in Florida now.
Where in Florida?
Lake Worth, Florida is where my grandmother lives, or my grandparents live right now. And there's a Jewish deli down there called Flakowitz, and it's like one of my favorite places on earth.
Okay.
And we had these like roast beef sandwiches, we had knishes, and then like the hominess of all of it.
Yeah.
I don't know, you can't mess that up.
No, you can't.
Matzo ball soup, probably number one. Sweet noodle kugel, I know this is a blasphemous statement. I love it. I think sweet noodle kugel is delicious.
Yes.
I think it's so good.
No.
It makes no sense, but it's delicious.
It shouldn't be delicious.
Yeah, it definitely shouldn't.
Yes. Well, Zoe Moskowitz, thank you so much. This was a blast.
Thank
and I know
you.
we ran a little bit longer than we normally do, but this has been so much fun getting to talk food with you because I love cooking, and this has been
awesome.
Super interesting. Thank you for joining us this
Thank
week.
you so much.
Thanks so much for listening, and thanks to Gold Group Realty for sponsoring this week. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. If you have someone who you think should be on the podcast, please email me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. The Who the Folk podcast is a product of Jewfolk Inc. and part of the Jewfolk Podcast Network. For more shows, check out tcjewfolk.com/podcast.